I was raised in a Lutheran church. I converted to Catholicism. I had this idea of what God is. Today, being so spiritual to me, and what I truly 100% believe, and this is what is shared in this movie, is that God is love. It's an energetic ball of love that we're all connected through this, right? Through this energy, through this love.
I love that way that you just described that, because it's so perfect. Hey everyone, it is that time again. It is the Relaunch podcast, and today is going to be so incredible. Not only is it the time of Thanksgiving, when we're just so grateful, we can sit back, we can talk, we can see. Sometimes the family is a good thing, sometimes it's not such a good thing. Wherever you are in your process, in your journey, I just want to say I am so grateful that you are here today, and we're going to over deliver. This is going to be one of the greatest episodes of all time. How about that? You don't hear me say that all the time. But why is that? Why is that? Because I have somebody that I've gotten to know over the last probably 6 months or so. And her story is of not just, we talk about the relaunches, the things that have just knocked us down, but she is somebody that I admire so much on how she has persevered, how she has gotten herself back up. Who am I talking about? I am talking about Marci Hopkins. She's an award-winning TV host. She's the executive producer and the creator of Wake Up with Marci, which is a nationally syndicated talk show. And guess what she talks about? Hope, inspiration. She has just recently put out a book. So she's now this author, Amazon bestseller. And the book we're going to be diving into today is called Chaos to Clarity, Seeing the Signs and Breaking the Cycles. Not only is she all this, but she's also a keynote speaker, an MC, a media trainer. So we might even get a few little media tips on how to do the best types of interviews. But she's also a multifunctional car organization creator, and it's called Carcentials. So she is an inventor. Today, I am so excited. Marci, welcome to the Relaunch Show.
Oh my God, thank you. What an intro. I hope I can deliver.
Well, it's so fun for me because we first met when I was a guest on Wake Up with Marci. And I got to share my book on that episode, and we ended up having so much fun. I came back and we did it again. And now today I get to have you on my show, and you get to talk all about your book and your relaunch journey, which is, I got to say, I've been reading your book, and you have always just been somebody that I have admired. And you don't share, when we're kind of together, it's fast. We're like, hey, everything's great, big hugs. And I now feel like I have this almost like the key into your heart and into your head. And thank you for being so open, so vulnerable. I mean, the tears were flowing down my face when I was reading it. But for those that don't know your actual relaunch journey or don't know your background, because I don't know, before you wrote the book, how much of what you're going to share with our audience were you actually talking about?
So it was really hard for me to share my story. But 8 years ago, when I put down my drink, what I coped with, what I learned to cope with, what I masked all of the pain with, when that was no longer working and truly destroying my life, and I put that down, I was able to begin the most beautiful healing journey and get to the root of what was really happening for me. And it was when I was able to do that, that I started to be able to really bring the pain and the trauma to the surface and start facing it. And I was so grateful to be able to do that, because when I did used to share about it, it was all about being a victim. So today when I share about it, it's very different. So I'm very grateful for that.
Well, and again, in reading it and the alcohol, it stemmed from something that happened that was very traumatic, that you would never, looking at you first blush, you'd never have any idea of the trauma that you've been through. Can you share with us those early years and what really kind of was the beginning of your relaunch journey?
Yeah, I mean, listen, my mother had me really young, and there was a lot of men in her life. And it was the men in her life that really brought the trauma to my life and to her life. And when I was there's a lot more to the story. It's in the book. But when I was 12, she married, and I thought this guy was going to be the knight in shining armor. He was the one that was going to bring us this most magical life, right? The one that I'd always dreamt of. And that is when sexual abuse started. And the sexual abuse completely changed this young girl, the dreams that I had, the respect and ideas that I had for myself completely changed. And I lost myself. It was each traumatic experience chipped away at who Marci was. And I had to find that girl again. And I just want to say that I had a lot of really difficult things that happened for me. And we all have a story. So no matter what your trauma is, it may not be as bad as the next person, but it's not about comparing our trauma. It's about us facing the trauma and healing from that trauma. And that's something that we all need to decide to do. And once we decide to do that, there's so much power and there's so much help out there, right? And you talk about relaunches. These are the relaunches. And we don't have to overwhelm ourselves and it have to be something huge. But once we just start slowly telling our story and chipping away at the pain, that's where the beauty of life starts to be discovered.
So you talk about in the book this idea around that your youth was taken away, that, you know, and as you're saying, the transformation going from victim to victor, taking back the power is so profound. And you and I know we have very similar. In my book, I talk about trauma for one may not be trauma for another. You know, it may say that's not a big deal. Wait till you hear, you know, what happened to me.
Exactly.
And then the person says, well, geez, that doesn't seem that bad to me. It's very independent. It's individualized within us what trauma really means. But for you, as you were, you know, your innocence, and as you said, you know, it's just, and it really even started, I believe, even earlier, you know, 5 or 6 years old, that you were, you know, in a position that you're a mom now. And imagine you being your mother or in that situation. I always think about, oh my gosh, I'm that age now, or I can't even imagine. There's a point in your book you actually talk about this. Tell us how you have, people talk about, you know, that first ability to be able to share something. And when you have something, was it the fact that you had children that all of a sudden you're like, wait, I'm willing to start talking about this? Or what was the impetus that actually got you saying, I need to open up about this now? It's not a hidden Marci secret anymore. It's not a dirty secret. that you
Yeah.
discuss?
Well, again, I did used to discuss it with people close to me, but I did it in a way that was very much as a victim, that this was done to me and how sad everyone should be for me. But once I was a mother and there were a number of things that were happening, I was, trying to be the best mom I could to my kids. I was trying to start a new career for myself. I was going through perimenopause, which, this is something that actually I've realized post healing that was something else that was going, another factor that was going on for me during that time, because I was crumbling. I was literally crumbling because of all of these things that were happening. And my husband wasn't around because he was working all of the time. And so it had gotten to a place where that victim, Marci victim, had gotten to an all-time high, right? So when I put that drink down and, life had almost.
Well, there's a story. There's a big story there. Can we talk about what happened that day that was finally, your dark night of the soul?
So the last day of drinking, I started acting. I got in front of the camera in my 40s. And I've always worked in television, but I was behind the scenes. So when I got in front of the television, in front of the camera, it was then that the lack of self-esteem and the lack of love that I had for myself became so apparent because I was being judged all of the time. There is such a roller coaster when you are in the acting industry, right? You're going for auditions, you're having to be available for your agents. If you get the gig, did I get the gig? Did I not get the gig? Why didn't I get the gig? So you're always feeling like you're judged. Mm-hmm. And my self-esteem was at an all-time high. So my drinking began to elevate because I started using that as liquid courage. Mm-hmm. So it was, so my last day of drinking was October 3rd.
So I have to say though, you said liquid courage. That's it's such an interesting, but yet you were doing this during the day as well, right? You were drinking during the day. Obviously you were drinking. No. So my drinking was what a lot of people may think is normal. I had wine with dinner. I go out on the weekend. I would have a cocktail and 2 glasses of wine. So it wasn't like I was drinking to what some people may think of an excess. Like to me, drinking a couple glasses of wine was mm-hmm. normal. It was when I got in front of the camera that I started drinking during the day. So I remember you said you filled up a thermos in the book. You say you filled up a thermos with wine, but you were able to drink the thermos and then still deliver your lines, and you were fine with that because it was 1 or 2 glasses in the thermos.
So I would maybe have 1 glass of wine before I would go into an audition. Mm. But the last day I drank, I had a thermos of wine because I always would bring it in the event that I needed it or felt that mm-hmm. I needed it. And I would try to wait till I got to my destination so I wasn't drinking and driving, right?
Sure.
So I got to it was going to be a modeling gig for a clothing line at Short Hills Mall. So I remember going up the escalator saying, okay, Marci, you don't need it. You can do this on your own. And I was so proud of myself because I got up there and I was going to do it. But then I found out that I was at the wrong mall. But the reason that I wasn't at the right mall is because I was living in a cloud of fog, right? Because I'm not really checking my emails. I'm not keeping a good calendar of what I was supposed to. I just knew that I had to be at the mall, and I thought it was Short Hills Mall because I'd done it there before. Mm-hmm. So I found out that I needed to be at Riverside Mall. Now you have a call time. So now I am freaking out. I'm driving to the other mall and I'm literally drinking the wine while I'm driving to the other mall. Okay. Because I am so frantic. And that was my answer. So I get to the mall. Then I walk the runway. I think it was so great, right? I have so much fun. Then my girlfriend and I go out afterwards, and we drink more and we drink more. And I wasn't eating a lot at that time because I was trying to stay thin. And anyway, I ended up getting behind the wheel of the car in a blackout, and I went to bed that night, and I was actually angry that I got caught. Right? Angry I got caught by the police, angry I got caught by my husband. And then
you got pulled over. You don't even remember being pulled over, but you end up getting a DUI.
Yes. So the thing is that somebody called me in for erratic driving. I was actually pulled on the side of the road in my community, and the police came up, and then I ended up getting a DUI. So they found, when my husband got me, I was in so much anger, right? Because again, and you're in the victim mode, you think it's everyone else's fault, right? So what happened is I went to bed that night in anger, and I woke up the next morning, of course, with complete shame of what I had done. Like, I mean, the idea of getting behind the wheel of a car, it took me a long time to get over the shame of doing that, and the gratitude to God that I didn't harm anyone and I didn't harm myself.
Yeah.
But the point to that is I got up and I had basically a point of surrender. I realized that I needed help, and God stepped in, and I admitted to myself I was an alcoholic, and I went downstairs and I told my husband that I needed help. And another big part of my story is never feeling love and self-love and feeling like somebody else has loved me. And that was something else that I always was trying to find. And I didn't think my husband really was giving it to me. But yet in that moment when he embraced me, it was the first time I felt love. So it was really a most beautiful, magical moment. Even though it was one of the worst days of my life, it was one of the best days of my life. And so I ended up going to 12-step program that day, and I never looked back. Mm-hmm.
And so you end up having this, moment where you're just like, I'm done. And I completely surrendered. I couldn't fight anymore. And it was like a great word. That's a great word. At some point you just have to be like, I can't fight it anymore. But you had actually, in the book, you mentioned that when anyone ever brought it up, that maybe you had an issue with alcohol. No. Like you didn't want to deal. And then all of a sudden this happens and you're like, Mm-hmm. So you checked yourself into the 12-step?
Yes. So the thing is about alcoholism, most times you know that your drinking's getting out of hand, right? Mm-hmm. So I felt that my drinking was getting a bit out of hand. I didn't want to turn out like my mother because she was a raging alcoholic. And so I always was comparing myself. My entire life, I've been checking how much I've been drinking because of the fear of turning into my mother. Mm-hmm. So about a year prior to me getting the DUI, I did go to the 12-step program. And I went to the 12-step program, but what happened is I started comparing myself to other people in the room. I didn't have that story. I didn't have that knockdown story. I was just drinking wine at night and, having a little trouble with my husband and feeling like I needed a change in my life. And I wanted to get myself on a better trajectory in life. And that's why I went to the 12-step program in the beginning. But yet, when everybody's talking about they're drinking all day, waking up with these hangovers, that wasn't who I was. So I'm like, I still got a good life. I still got a career. I'm taking care of my kids. I'm doing this. I'm part of the PTO. I'm part of the community. Like, that isn't my story. Mm-hmm. So because that wasn't my story, I went on a vacation and I didn't drink. I'm like, I got this. So it took that 12 months for me to prove that I really needed help. But to go back to, telling the story. So once I started healing, I started being guided by God as to what my mission in life was. And so it was utilizing all of my experience from being in the television industry and being in front of the camera, and going back to a dream of being in front of the camera, that I ended up being, this seed was planted to do a talk show. And I ended up just launching a talk show called Coffee with Marci. At that time, I wasn't even sure of the name, but I knew that I wanted to do something to give back in the community. So, at first I wasn't being outwardly open with my story, except for in the rooms. But once I started Coffee with Marci, I was in that world for about a year. Things were going great. That is when I was pushed towards doing Wake Up with Marci. And that is where I wanted to tell these transformational stories to spread hope. And that's when sharing my story became something different. Because I knew sharing our story there was so much power and hope, because people out there are being touched by all of these things that are everything that goes on in our lives, other people are touched by. It may be a different magnitude or different stories, but how did one person get through that? And how can I not feel alone? How can I learn how to get past whatever
Marci,
this crap is going on in my life?
You're speaking to the choir here, because everything you're saying is that when I opened up and started to share the relaunches and the journey and became, and vulnerable is an interesting word, because I believe a lot of women that are our age, we do try to come across as, I'm a more polished version, right? And we didn't want to destroy that version in any way, because on the outside, and you talk about this in your book, on the outside, hey, everything's great. It's all good. But on the inside, you're cratering. You're self-combusting, right? And what you have done with Wake Up with Marci, and what I believe I'm doing right now with the Relaunch podcast, the show, is that you're able to highlight people's journeys. You're able to let them have a platform to say, and I've had people come on this show who've never, like halfway through, they're like crying and they're like, I've never talked about this before. And one of the things that I ask either on air or after is I'll say, if you could go back and not have it happen, would you? And not one to date has said, yeah, I would. At this point, they're like, no, because that's who I am. That's my journey. That's what makes me me. That's all those women, all those girls that came before me within me. It's become who I am. You take away any of that and I'm not who I am. And so I just admire so much what you've created. And you've been doing Wake Up with Marci for how long?
About 6 years now.
6 years. And I'm just guessing, like how many, just do an estimation here. How many people have you had on your show at this point?
Oh God. I mean, you talk about 6 years, you talk about, I mean, you gotta, let's just say 800 people. I don't know exactly. Like,
think about, and as you said, each one of their stories, each one of what they're doing in their life and what they're bringing to the world, and has impacted so many. And I know you have, your show is on in New York on Saturday mornings on a network, and
WLY.
You got it syndicated everywhere. And people are hungry for this type of content these days, literally hungry. So I admire everything you've done. And as I sit here and I'm like, you've done, close to almost 1,000 now of these incredible interviews. And I probably have had on the show at a minimum now, 200, 250 plus with summits and everything like that. And sharing, and when you can open up a platform to allow people to say, you know what, this is my story and I made it through it. I was able to change the victim to victor. But I know people would love to hear from you. You decided to create this show. You decided to get out there and make this impact. At this point, where are you going with everything? What do you ultimately want? You just wrote a very successful, just heart-wrenching story of inspiration, though, right? Yeah. And so what ultimately would you love if we could look back in 10 years from now? What would you say, this is what I want to do, what I want to impact, where I want to be?
Well, listen, I want to continue to grow the show. I think no matter where you are in this world, we are very fortunate that we get to tell our stories, that we are able to create these platforms. But people, women and men all over the world are being touched by pain and trauma and feeling alone and not being given the resources or the ability to heal from them. So how wonderful to be able to open up the platform on such a broad scope. So somebody else on the other side of the world, we're sitting there talking to going, yeah, I've experienced that too, or something close to that, right? And I also would be so honored, and this is a huge dream, that my story could become a movie. And this is only because I have been told that it should, when is it going to be a movie, right?
But I'm going to push you on that, Marci, because in your book, you talk about you don't listen to your own, or you hadn't listened to your own intuition. It's not other people at this point. That's intuitively, you know that this could be a very successful show. It could. I agree. There's a lot of depth here that we didn't even go through. A lot of craziness, a lot of oh my God, I can't believe that happened. Yeah. There's a lot there.
But there's a lot there. And I had a gentleman come on my show, and I will tell you that everything that happens in my life today is from connecting to someone on my show. And that is what I'm so grateful for. So I had a gentleman that came on my show, and he created a Christian-based movie studio, and it was very successful. And because of what he was doing, now every studio has a branch of Christian programming. So one of my biggest stories in my book, and the reason why my life changed, is because I went to my higher power, to Jesus, and I asked for his savior and to help me through what I was going through, and life-changing. And that is the signs from the other side that I talk about. Like when I opened up my heart and allowed for the guidance and somebody else to guide me, a shepherd, for me, Jesus, shepherding me, right?
Yeah, and some people have, universal spirit, other forms of God, whatever it is, but there's that guidance. There's something drawing you to a bigger purpose.
Yeah, and there's a movie I just saw called After Death, and it's about near-death experiences. And it is exactly what I believe today. I mean, I was raised in a Lutheran church. I converted to Catholicism. I had this idea of what God is. Today, being so spiritual to me, and what I truly 100% believe, and this is what is shared in this movie, is that God is love. It's an energetic ball of love that we're all connected through this, right? Through this energy, through this love.
I love that way that you just described that, because it's so perfect. Because, I know we have a lot of people listening right now that, again, there's something, the people that really are drawn to Relaunch know that there's something bigger than themselves.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
And love, my God, if we can just all just dive into that's ultimately what we're going for. Huh.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's so great.
I just really believe it's all about love, and it starts with self-love. And that's what I found through my healing. And that's when life changed for me.
Well, and you know what's great to have you say this, because sometimes you hear people out there and they're, on the stages and they're like, love this and love that.
Yeah.
But you've been through the trenches, girl. Like,
Yeah.
you fought your way. And I talk in the book about, I didn't even like myself. How am I going to go? How am I going to cross the Grand Canyon and get to love? So I always say, first you got the self-sabotage. You got the, be willing to say, I actually hate, then like, then love. Yeah. So there is hope for all of us. Right.
Yeah.
But as we're, thankful and grateful. And I know we've talked about just so many exciting things that are happening with us. I have to ask you, there is a big announcement that you and I are making, and actually we're going to do it right now. But when you thought about expanding, and you even said, hey, I want to take Wake Up with Marci to the next level, what are you really thinking?
Listen, it's just expanding as far as maybe bringing on a partner that can help me to create this dream.
I love your smile right now. Wow. If I had a drum in the office here, I would do a drum roll and say, I am so excited to announce that I am going to be coming in as your co-host. Wake Up with Marci and Hilary is officially launching. We're not even waiting until next year. We are doing this. It was for me, it was just that connection when I met you the first time, and then I came back and there were sparks. But let me ask you, what do you think will be the difference between being a host? You've had, Wake Up with Marci, you said, all these years, and now you're willing to take on a co-host. Like, what was the reason you're like, hey, it's now time?
You know what? A lot of times we think that we have to do things alone. And yes, this journey, I have been alone, but for growth. And
done an amazing job. Amazing.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. But growth and expansion, and like you said, and I was talking about before, I didn't even get to finish my story about the movie, but the thing is that finding you, and I had the seed planted about having a co-host for quite some time. So again, it's something over time that was growing. I was thinking about, but nobody was fitting that role for me. And when you came on the first time, we really hit it off. Then you came on as a co-host, and it was at that time that I was really ready to bring on someone. And we just connected in a way that I hadn't connected with anyone else. So it's that energy, that energetic level that we've connected. I think our messaging is so on point. Our beliefs are so aligned, and just the mission of helping others and allowing others to shine. How wonderful that we could help one another shine even more so, and then expanding to allow others to shine more. And that is almost going back to that love. So we found a love and a connection, and we are embracing that and growing from that. And we'll just continue to grow and help others to grow from hopefully the light that we will be sharing when we have the show.
And we
Wake Up with Marci and Hilary.
I love this. And I haven't really shared, and I don't even think but one of the you talk seeds, right? Yeah. That you had been thinking of somebody coming in. Well, I had been thinking, all right, my big crazy like dream since I was, young was, hey, let's do something like this. Let's do a co-host. Let's be out there. Let's talk to people and tell their stories. And so for so many years, I have had this like vision of me sitting next to Hoda of the Today Show. Like, it's just so funny. Like, I have this,
I love that.
and I kept saying, well, I think I could be best friends with her. Like, I mean, I really think. And then I met you. And I'm like, God, she's so cool. I really like her. I like, as you said, the energy. I like what you stand for. And so my goal for us is that we're going to get Hoda. We're going to get Hoda on as a guest. Okay. I'm throwing it out there into the universe. And I think that, you know what, everything is in alignment for us to grow this incredible brand that you started and you've nurtured and you've built. And I am so blessed and grateful that you have enough confidence in me. I'm going to need a lot of your media training in order to make it happen.
Yeah, well, thank you. And you know what's so funny? I love Hoda, and I'm like Hoda. I'm going to be Hoda.
We'll do it together.
So you bring on Hoda, but I want to be on Hoda's show. So let's envision we're on Hoda's show.
Love it.
And she is announcing the beautiful work that we are doing. How about that?
Marci, right there. That's what it's all about. So what I am going to commit to my audience right now is that, Marci, I want you to come back. I want to be able to talk about, we didn't even touch the surface about like the steps about what you're out there teaching and spreading and how to actually go from being a victim to this victor and how to actually embrace the things that you are now teaching so many. So we'll continue this journey. So many different platforms we've already talked about. And unfortunately, it is time to wrap this up. And I always love at the end, I say, so, where can people find you? And so share with us where they can find you. And I'm buzzing. I'm buzzing right now.
I know. Well, one thing I want to say is that our shows will be launching in December. So the first show will be, what is the first weekend in December? Is that December
4th? The 4th.
4th. December 4th. Oh, yes, December 4th. So every Saturday, starting in December, Hilary and I will be there Saturday mornings at 10 a.m., bringing you just magic, really. Magic. That's what I want, right? And you talk about the relaunches in my book, Chaos to Clarity, and offering this. So we can talk more about it, but people can learn so much through our books. They can see what's happened with us, and look where we are today. We built this, and there was a time that we didn't think we could. So people are out there questioning who they are, where they are in life. I'm never going to pull myself out of this. But know that it is possible. And you and I are true examples of that. And that's why you always want to find somebody that you can thrive and strive to be like and learn from them and realize that all of these things that anyone else is living is a possibility for you and whatever your dreams are. So thank you so much for having me on the show. And I can't wait for our show launching in December. And everyone tune in, look for, Wake Up with Marci and Hilary. And where can you find us? I mean, you can find us at my website, wakeupwithmarci.com. And I'm sure everything's going to be on your website, right? And we're going to have social media. So actually, there's a lot of things we're going to have to figure out going down the road. But right now.
Exactly. And if you're in the New York area or some of these other cities, you can watch it live. I mean, I'm excited. I get to be there once a month. I'm going to be coming in for a couple days, filming the shows. And I put out there, if you've got a great relaunch story, if you've got something that you're like, you know what? get in contact with us. You know how to reach me right here. You've got, the Relaunch Co. DM both of us and let's make it happen. Let people hear your story. Let people hear your relaunch because it will impact somebody else. And so, Marci, thank you again. So excited. Again, everyone, the happiest Thanksgiving holiday season. Be safe. Live now, love now, relaunch now, and we'll see you again soon. Take care. If you like this video and want to get more like it, head over here.